you'd be here tonight. And I will admit to being a little nervous having you on, but also thank you for the inspiration and everything I've learned from you. And that may come up a little bit later tonight. I'd like to suggest that math is figure outable. So that's like my tagline. You might be like, okay, it's cute, Pam, kind of kitschy. We figure in math, so it's figure outable. However, I actually mean it to send some pretty intense messages, one of which I'd like to talk about tonight, which is that math isn't what I thought it was as a young student, and as a young teacher. So as a student and as a young teacher, I had a completely different perspective of math. I thought that math was rote memorizable. So I bought into the myth that math is a disconnected set of facts to memorize and rules and procedures to mimic. Now, you might look down on me right now. You might be like, why would you do that? Math is so much more, obviously. Oh, you were one of those, you were just like one of those kids that just followed the rules. I don't know why you weren't thinking, but I would suggest to you that I wasn't thinking. Well, I was doing a lot of thinking, but it was always about someone else's thinking. I was trying to figure out someone else's method. I was trying to when to do that method and why and how. What I wasn't doing was using my intuition, what I knew, and I wasn't actually reasoning. Now, I'm aware that traditionally a lot of you here are high school teachers. I'm actually a little curious if you wouldn't mind giving me some information. So in the chat, would you just tell me what grade you teach? You're welcome to put your name there too if you want. I know we have some university on tonight as well, but what grades do you teach? Give me some idea of kind of who we're messing with tonight. Excellent. We've got a fourth grade on it. Love that. So I'm definitely going to be talking a little wider tonight than just high school for sure. In fact, some of you high school teachers might be like, so hold that, because I promise high school, I'm talking to you as well. Thank you. Yep, just looking. Nice. Yeah, I appreciate that, everybody. Some coaches, excellent. So as a high school math teacher, I ran into this really interesting sort of midlife crisis in my life when my young son started going to school, and all of a sudden he started talking about math in ways I had never considered. Like, he was using his own reasoning to solve problems. He would come home and he would have different marks on his paper than what I was typically associating with, like subtraction, when, especially across zeros and all those things. And it kind of blew my mind a little bit. And so I dove into the research. I was super interested to know if I could create his intrigue, the way that he was reasoning, if I could actually do that in my high school classes. Let's be honest. I was actually kind of curious if I could create it in me, because I was clear that wasn't me. Now, again, you might be looking down at me like, yeah, I don't know why. Well, maybe I could share with you tonight why I was doing what I was doing and then what got me out of it, because I'd love to be able to help the rest of you, those of you who've always been thinking mathematically. I'd love to help you create you and your students. Create the love that you have of math and the way that you tinker with relationships. I think there's a way to do that, maybe that we haven't ever considered quite like this before. I'd like to give you just a little bit. We're going to do a little bit from research, and you might know Phil Darrow. So I'm going to tell a little story from Phil Darrow. Maybe even heard him talk about it against answer getting. I'm going to give you my version of a spiel that he does against answer getting just quickly. So the TIM study is one of those studies that's international. It's when they sent camera crews to classrooms and they videoed lessons, and then they made the videos available to researchers around the world. And one of the things that Phil Darrow noticed in those videos is he was comparing two groups of teachers, and he noticed that each group of teachers from two different nations had teachers that ranged the gamut. They were poor teachers to what he said pedagogical geniuses. Both groups of teachers had like all the way. He even called them dullards. So like poor teachers all the way to pedagogical geniuses. And he noticed that in one group, they got kind of mediocre results from their students. Their students kind of like okay. But in the other group, no matter how good or poor that teacher was, they got excellent results from their students. And he was troubled by that. He was like, why can I look at like even pedagogical geniuses in this group and they're getting mediocre results from their students, but in this group, they're getting excellent results, even from rather poor teachers. Would you find that troubling? Everybody go like this. Like, that's interesting. And he's kind of self-deprecating. I love Phil Darrow. He's like, can't believe it took me this long to figure it out. But y'all, He's the only one that figured out that there was this difference in the framework the teachers were working from. And I would suggest one group of teachers was much more inclined to think that math was rote memorizable, and one group of teachers was much more inclined to know that math is figure outable. So as he looked at those two groups of teachers, he noticed that the one group of teachers, the one that was getting kind of mediocre results, they would look at the problem of the day. So they're going to do their lesson plan, they're getting ready to teach, and you would look at what they did in their classroom, and you could really clear that their objective was, how can I help my students get answers to these kinds of problems? Right? That's our job. Our job, we look at the problem, we say to ourselves, how can I help my students get answers to these kinds of problems? Okay. Then he looked at the teachers that were having more success, where the students were having better results. And he noticed they had a different take. They would look at the exact same problem of the day, but those teachers would say, how can I give my students these problems so that they learn to reason through these type of problems? Now, that's kind of Phil Darrow's words. Let me put my spin on what I think he means. Took me a hot minute looking at some examples that he used and everything. Here's my words on that. Teachers in this group, how can I help my students get answers to these kinds of problems? Teachers in this group, how can I immerse my students in these kinds of problems so that they grapple with the relationships that are happening? They make sense of what's going on so that then they can reason through these kinds of problems. That's a big difference. How can I help my students get answers to these kinds of problems? How can I immerse my students in this phenomena and what's happening here so that students grapple with the relationships, so that they literally create neural connections, mental relationships, so that then they can reason through those kinds of problems? I find that noteworthy. You might find it interesting that it was the US teachers and Japanese teachers that he was comparing. I don't know that that's as important. But I do think that I was just had a conversation this week with a principal in Australia who said, we're getting these students from the United States that are so procedural. Why are you guys so, I was like, I mean, not all of us are, but maybe at least many of us have this sense that I'm going to teach the way I was taught, because either that's all I know. Look at me. That's all I knew. All I knew was that it was a disconnected set of facts to memorize and rules and procedures to mimic. Boy, howdy, I'm going to help you memorize them. We're going to tell stories and we're going to make it cute. And we might have some songs and I was very entertaining and I was going to help you memorize that stuff. Or you might be, well, I mean, like I did all this in my head while the teacher was showing those steps. And so that's the way you do it. You show the steps and then kids create stuff in their head if they have the math gene. May I offer to you, you don't have to have the math gene. I think we can all think and reason. I'm frankly a little bitter. I could have understood all that stuff I wrote memorized. Like I could have actually been mathematizing. That's a verb I'm going to use. The verb that means do what mathematicians do. I could have actually been mathematizing instead of rote memorizing all that stuff. I'd like to give you some examples of what I mean by that today. So I'm actually suggesting that math teaching is not about helping kids mimic step-by-step procedures. But if it's not about algorithms, then what is it? What are we doing? What can we do with students? What does it look like to do what those Japanese teachers were doing? What does it look like to immerse kids in problems so that they grapple with relationships, so that then they gain those connections, neural connections, so they can reason through problems? You might be like me when I was a young teacher, because if I heard you say that, I would think, you want me to give kids problems they've never seen and they don't know how to do, and then what, like magically wave a wand and they're just, the formula is going to come to them? Like, Pam, that's ridiculous. I've seen these kids don't think. I need to tell them what to do over and over. I can give them one, they can't even do one way, much less come up with their own way. Come on. Or can they? So what I'm not suggesting is giving them the type of problems that you give when you do 1 through 29 odd, never having had any experience. Could we do an experience here? I'm going to, will you dive in with me? I'd like to give you an experience of what I call a problem string. Before we dive, I want to say one more quick thing. Often when I work with teachers of anybody, okay, all grade levels, mostly older grade levels, but really all grade levels, teachers will often say to me, if only my students came to me knowing more. fact, I just talked to a teacher not too long ago that said, you would not believe the range of learners I have. Like, I just have kids who know nothing, and I have kids who know so much, and it's so difficult. Are you ready? That was a kindergarten teacher. I almost laugh. Like, I'm like, really? Your range? Your range. Like, I'm a former high school teacher. Like, my range, if your range is here, my range is like, right? We get kids that are such at drastically different sort of stages. What would it be like if we met them where they are? So I'd like to do an experience of what could it be like to do, and I'm gonna let you decide at what level you think your students are. What could you do something like this? Could that meet all your students where they are and actually get to some grade level content? So we'll stop maybe in some ways and go, ooh, maybe I'd stop here if I was at this grade and that. Anyway, so let's have an experience. Let me change my input. Can y'all see my screen okay? Yeah, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and write. You saw that, yes? Excellent. All right, here we go. Thank you, by the way, for the few of you that have your cameras on. It's so much easier for me to talk to people. Talking to no cameras is really hard. So for the 5 of you, you're my favorite people. All right, here we go. If I were to just say randomly, I don't know, y'all, like, how do you think about a problem like, how about 28 plus 49? Now you could, thank you for the rest of you turning cameras on. You could do something that someone told you how to do in 2nd grade, but maybe, like, do you think, is there some relationships that you could use to solve that? Go ahead and solve it. Go ahead and solve it. After you've got an answer, if you would give me a thumbs up if you're willing to share your answer and maybe even how you did it. So give me a thumbs up when you've got an answer. All right. Go ahead and throw that answer in the chat. What is 28 plus 49? Go ahead and throw that in the chat. Let's just get that established, get out of the way. We'll just make sure that we're all agreeing. 48 plus or 28 plus 49. What do you got? Slowest typist ever. You guys are, that's funny. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, no, you don't have to type your strategy, just the answer. That's why it's taking you. So just the answer. So a lot of you are saying that it might be 77. I'm seeing a lot of people think that the answer here might be 77. I'm a little curious. Did anybody, and I can kind of look at your work here to see. So like if I look at Carol is using a strategy that I see a lot where students will say, hey, I'm thinking about 28 as 20 and 8. And I'm thinking about 49 as 40 and 9. And then I could sort of think about that 20 and that 40 together to get 60. And I'm thinking about that 8 and that 9 together to get 17. And then we could think about that 60 and 17 to get 77. Yeah? Does that make sense to everybody? And I kind of call that splitting by place value. We traditionally call that partial sums. Sort of do some sums. We've split by place value because we split the numbers into place value. I don't really like partial sums as a name because I think we can have other partial sums. These are particular partial sums where we did it actually by place value. I wonder if we could do a different kind of partial sum. I'm looking in the chat to see if anybody, and I don't see it, so I'm just going to ask for it. Did anybody think about 28, 30? And then kind of add some more after that? I'm looking. Rita, you might have. Can you tell us about that, Rita? Tell us about your strategy. She's finding that unmute button. She can do it. She can do it. Nope, still can't hear you.
Yeah, it will go 30, and then how much do I need to 40, and then how much do I need to get to 49, and that's...
So if you start at 28, you're like, how much do I need to get to 30? How much do you need to get to 30?
2.
2. And so what do you have left? If you've already added 2, but you're supposed to add this 49, how much do you have left to add from that 30? Or from the 49? If I go from 30, I need to still add how much?
47.
47, yeah. So what is 30 and 47? And you guys all agreed that was 77. So that could be a fine strategy that you could use. I'm looking for one more, and I know I saw it. So let me see. Dr. Usiskin, you said that you can, I'm just put words to I'll vocalize what you put in the chat. You said you could add 28 and 50. Is that right? 28 and 50? Yeah. Go ahead. You unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, it's just 28 plus 50 minus 1. In some sense, it's almost the same strategy as Rita's.
In some sense, I would agree with you. And in some sense, I would say it's a little different. What is 28 and 50? If you'll finish this out for me, 28 and 50 is
78.
78. And then you said, but I got to back up 1 because you added a bit too much, right? You're only supposed to add 49, but you're like, 49. Bleh. How about 50? Ah, that's so nice. Back up 1 and you backed up to 77. Nice. In fact, it would be delightful if at this point I would have actually modeled that more over. Hey, I didn't do too bad. Look how those 28s line up and those 77s, they're close-ish. That's actually ideal. When we represent student strategies, we want the magnitudes to be, I got a lot of high school on right now. And a couple of you look like, are we going to get to high school? Give me just a little bit longer, a little bit longer. I promise we're going to meet your needs in just a second. Cool. So I could ask students, can you use relationships to add those numbers together? Spend a little bit of time maybe representing their thinking. Next question. How about if I asked you, random next question, 4 times 7 plus 7 times 7? Completely unrelated. Go ahead and answer that question. Give me a thumbs up when you've got an answer to that one. Ronald's smiling a little bit. Someone must have just told a joke in Ronald's house. Thank you, Jennifer, for your thumb up. I appreciate that. Mary's kind of nodding. Rita's got a thumb up. And then I'm seeing some 77s come in the chat. But y'all, that was the problem before. So this is the next problem. Like, wait, it's also 77? Interesting. Did anybody actually do the multiplication? Did anybody say to yourself, okay, 4 times 7 is 28 and 7 times 7 is 49. And once you got that 28 and that 49, then you did some addition, and you could totally do that. Jennifer, you're like, I did not do that. Jennifer, that's what it said to do. Why did you not do that?
I recognized that 4 times 7 was 28 and 7 times 7 was 49 right away. And I knew that was the same problem we just did.
So that would definitely be a way of solving it. Did anybody not use the answer from the problem before, but actually used 4 7s and 7 7s to help you think about that answer? Steve, you might have. Steven, who's, I can see your forehead. Steven, how you doing there? There's more of Steven. There we go.
I like the word times. The word times is what kind of clued me
Can you say more about that? Clued you into what?
into multiplication as repeated addition. Like we got 4 7s, and we have 7 7s.
How many 7s do you have?
Yeah, so we have 11 7s.
And do you know something about 11 times 7?
That one's easy. That's a
Bam.
77.
Nice. Next problem. How about if I asked you 81 subtract 27? I wonder if you could think and reason using relationships for that problem. Maybe somebody could be like Dr. Usiskin that did a bit too much. I don't know. Does that work with subtraction? Can you be him with subtraction? Subtract too much? Give me a thumbs up when you're like, yep. I got a strategy for that one. I got some relationships I can use. Okay. Go ahead and type your answer in the chat when you're ready. Go ahead and hit enter. Let's take a look at what everybody's getting. A lot of 54s coming out. You guys agree? Might that be 54? Yeah. Did anybody do something similar to Dr. Usiskin? Did anybody subtract, not 27, but you subtract too much? Like, did anybody subtract 30? A couple people are nodding. Mary, you did? Could you tell us about that, Mary?
Sure. I subtracted 30 because it was easier.
From the 81? 30.
I got 51.
Okay.
I knew that I had overdone it by 3. So I added 3 on and ended at 54.
Even though we're subtracting, you added? Can she do that?
Well, because I over subtracted, and if I understand that subtracting and adding cancel each other out in even amounts, then I can overdo something and then underdo later. I can have more calories at dinner than if I had fewer calories at lunch.
That's awesome. I might remember that next time we do this particular problem. Cool. Next problem. How about if I asked you? Wait.
I used my tables of 27.
You know what? I believe you, but I'm in charge here. So if you'll hold on just a second, I don't want that one yet. Hang on.
Oh,
Hey, next question. What about 9 times 9? Subtract 3 times 9. I know we were doing subtraction, but I'm just gonna throw some multiplication in here just really fast. 9 times 9 minus 3 times 9. Go ahead and solve that way any way you want. Michelle's kind of smiling a little bit. Michelle, what are you smiling about? Tell us what you're thinking.
I see the same pattern as the 4 times 7 and the 7 times 7. So I did 9 minus 3 is 6, and 6 times 9 is 54.
So you've got 9 nines, subtract 3 nines. You're like, bam, I can think about that as 6 nines. And you know that that's
Right.
54. Interesting. So what if I just gave you a problem like 144 minus 96? Anybody have anything ping for them a little bit right now? Anybody like all of a sudden in your head, you're thinking less about subtraction and you're thinking more about multiplication? Any multiplications like firing at you? Did I set you up in such a way that now I've given you a problem that now maybe not everybody, and I'm okay if it's not everybody, but is anybody like doing some it's almost like you can't stop it from flashing in front of you? Y'all, what are you looking for? What factor is screaming at you? Just mouth it to your microphone. Is anybody seeing some 12s going on? Does anybody see some 12? How many 12s? Do you see 12 12s? Subtract how many 12s? Is that 8? I never know. Is that 8 12s? So do you think that might be 4 12s? And if you know something about 4 12s, that you could use that to solve a subtraction problem? What? Why would you do that? So like if I ask you something like, I don't know, 9.9 subtract 8.1, anybody see any factors? Are there factors popping out at you? I'm doing this really fast. With students, I would take a little bit more time. I'm looking for smiles. Rita's got some fingers going on. Mary's smiling. What does anybody now, because of time, I'm going to ram this a little bit, but does anybody see 99 minus 81? Is that like 11 nines minus 9 nines and 11 nines minus 9 nines? Is that just 2 nines? Yeah. What's 2 nines? Is that 18? But bam, we better consider some place value. Is that a way that students could actually think and reason? Could I, and so if I'm a 4th grade teacher, could I have gone up to this point? Maybe even this point, but I don't, that's a little bit lot. But 6th grade, could I do something like that? How about 7th grade and up? How about a high school teacher who wants to help their students actually think and reason a little bit with addition and subtraction and build some multiplication facts because we know how good they are at those. And then what if I actually want to end with some grade level content? Could I say, hey, what if I had something like 11, what if I had something like 11n, I don't know what the factor is, minus 9 of that same, whatever they were, what would I have at the end? Oh, what would everybody say to your microphone? How many n's would I have? Yeah, just like we had 2 9s before, we'd have 2 of those, and we've just done a little collecting like terms. We've got some algebra coming out of what we just did, where if your kids are you're like Pam, they don't know multiplication facts, I might wonder how well they're actually thinking additively. Could we wrap up? Could we take some grade level content and grab kids and say, you know what? Math is actually figure outable. And that stuff that you wrote memorized when you were a kid, you could actually think through it and look at where it could fall into algebra. Now I only had a little time tonight, so I had to do kind of a quick example, but I have lots more longer examples or the same, where we could actually do grade level content, but wrap kids into believing that math is more figure outable. This is a graphic I created that I would invite you to consider. It represents that if we want kids reasoning about functions and relations and bivariate covariation at the high school level, that's based on proportional reasoning. But y'all, it's not based on the development. So this says the development of mathematical reasoning. It's not the development of mathematical answer getting, not that. It's not about getting answers to proportions. It's about actually reasoning proportionally. Well, that's based on reasoning multiplicatively, which is based on additive thinking. I would suggest the experience we just had could help students build additive thinking, because I think a lot of your students are actually stuck in counting because the algorithms tend to keep kids there. Now, I would applaud Dr. Siskin's work that he did in Everyday Math, where he said, y'all, let's just get kids thinking. And in a big way, that program, at least the last time I looked at it, did a lot of splitting by place value, a lot of partial products, partial sums, partial products, partial differences. If I could respectfully suggest, I don't know that you went far enough. I think we can't leave kids in partials, or when we get to the middle school, kids have to do algorithms. I don't want kids in algorithms at all. I'm suggesting it's not about rote memorizing algorithms, even if we made sense of them. In fact, I'm going to make a bold statement. Algorithms are amazing historical achievements, but not very good teaching tools. I think we can actually develop kids to reason mathematically and help them build the way they think, similar in a manner that we just did. And for time's sake tonight, I don't have a lot more. So what I'm going to do is say, there's a couple next steps that you could do if my work interests you at all. You could check out the Math is Figureoutable website and podcast. They're short. We know they're for teachers. They're like 15 to 25 minutes long. I think we hit some really important topics. Would love to get your take on that. I also throw out a problem once a week on all the major social media where you can look at, there's a fraction division, there's an addition. We go all the way to writing the equation of a line, where we get people from all around the world submitting their strategies. About 1% of the time, somebody puts an algorithm. It's not very interesting, so we ignore it, and we all talk about everybody else's thinking. And I think that we can actually develop that actively in students. They don't have to do it on their own. Tonight, I'll offer you, I've created a free ebook. If you want to know what my strategies are, I'm super curious how Dr. Usiska took what I just said. Because I said, if it's not about algorithms, and I don't think partials go far enough, I don't think they get us efficient enough, then what do kids need to develop? And so in this book, I've given you the difference between a strategy and an algorithm, strategy and a model, huge difference. The 4 most important addition strategies, subtraction strategies, multiplication strategies, those are early ones. There's the main ones. There's the main division ones. And then I also gave you some sample problem strings like we just did for you to try out to see if you could build those relationships in your students. If you're interested in that, y'all, there is the link. I've put it in the chat. You can download that. It's totally free. There it goes. If you want to click on the link in the chat, it's the easiest way to get it. You can also do that with your phone if it's not what you're looking at right now. Anyway, that link will totally give you that free ebook. I would love your feedback, because I just boldly said, I think these are the major relationships. I want to hear from educators around the world. What relationships do you think are the major ones? If we can get kids efficient enough that they don't need the algorithms. In fact, computers need algorithms. Humans are smarter than that. We can use our intuition to choose the strategy, just like, and you'll notice, Dr. Siskin, I know that you did those 27s, and I know I skipped right over that, but it was super cool. And it was almost higher than I wanted to go today. So I kind of chose, and I will do that as a teacher. I suggest we have to sort of choose where we're going to go. And I knew we had a 4th grade teacher on. So we sort of went, hopefully at a decent clip. I'll also tell you that I have a free workshop called Developing Mathematical Reasoning. If that interests you, totally free out there. Here's the link. It's a bit.ly link. I don't have that one in the chat, but it's super easy. bit.ly/DMR get Developing Mathematical Reasoning. Go get it. If you're interested in that, you're welcome to grab that one. That link will show up a little bit later. So y'all, math is figureoutable. It's about teaching real math, not telling math. I think we need to experience math, because we can mathematize as we help our students and mentor them to be mathematicians. It's not about algorithms. It's about relationships among numbers and structures to solve problems, between teachers and students to nurture and mentor young mathematicians. Y'all were fantastic. Thank you for having me tonight. I will see you at the next conference. Take care, everybody.
Thank you so much, Pam. You really know how to leave us wanting more. I know you have you're very much in demand tonight, so I know you have to go, but thank you so much.
Thank you.
And,
take care.
Appreciate having you. So I do.
I did want to clarify one thing. I had nothing to do with everyday mathematics. So I'm sorry that she already left. I mean, I was certainly the head of UCSMP, and everyday math is part of UCSMP, but Max Bell was in charge of everyday mathematics.
Can I ask something?
Sure.
Saul, what's the 27 thing?
Oh, I just said it was.
Might as well learn something new.
No, it was 81 minus, wasn't it 81 minus 27 or something like that? I just said I used my tables of 27. It was a kind of joke.
There's not some special, like...
I mean, no, later I was gonna, if I wanted to keep it going, there were tables of 48 that were going on when 140. But there is a sense of that. I mean, when you're, arithmetic is something that even when I was in school, I was very, very good at. I went into mathematics because I was good at arithmetic. That's not mathematics, as we all know. I had never had a day of algebra before I thought I'm really good at mathematics. But it was arithmetic that did that, and so I've always seen relationships among numbers. But I just wanted to clarify. I'll have to send something to Pam to correct her impression, because obviously all the weaknesses of everyday mathematics are not due to me, but even the strengths. So, yeah.
So shortly there will be a link in the chat for CPDUs, so keep an eye out for that in just a minute. And then, of course, if you've done this before, you'll fill out the survey that the link sends you to, and then once the survey is filled out, you'll get a link to the evidence of completion form for your files.
Can I also say one other thing about something that she talked about? She talked about the study of comparing United States with Japanese classes. These were 8th grade classes. The study was done in the late 90s. It was actually done about 25 years ago. And it was a very interesting study because they televised, I mean, that is, they filmed all the classes that they were doing so they could study the classes, but they only had 2 cameras. And one camera was on the teachers and the other camera was on students. And all the United States classes that involved students working in groups, they couldn't film. They had no way of filming it. And they had no way of classifying those classes. And there were 81 United States classes in this study, and none of them were considered good. It's because the best classes, they just simply didn't have the technology to capture what was going on in the classes. Just thought I'd throw that in.
I did not know that. All right, but next up, we have on Friday, March 3rd, we have Scott Powers talking about the evolution of batting statistics in baseball, a good stats talk. Looking forward to this. We will be in person back at the Display and Ducks Club, so get that on your calendars. There will be registration at mmcchicago.org coming up. A little sooner than that, we have our virtual conference of workshops coming up on Saturday, February 4th, is right around the corner. Registration is open, but only until January 25th. That's 5 days from now. So if you have not yet registered, get on that, because you only have a few days to register. You can find registration also at mmcchicago.org. And again, thank you for attending. If you'd like to become a member, once again, mmcchicago.org. It's the place to be, really. Everything's there. And donations are always welcome at zelf4mmc@gmail.com. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you all have a lovely evening.
He's going to stay on the line.